The spoiled billionaire was forced to marry the woman his family called ugly, but she destroyed his arrogance in one night. Everyone in Charleston whispered about Cole Harrington, the youngest billionaire in the South, handsome, ruthless, untouchable. He had built an empire on charm and cruelty, leaving broken hearts and failed rivals behind. But power makes a man blind, and pride always comes with a price. When his father demanded he marry Dr. Amara Brooks, the reclusive scientist no one in high society had ever seen, Cole laughed in his face. "Ugly, dull, and ordinary," he said. "That woman can't stand next to a Harrington." He didn't know that the woman he mocked would soon strip him of everything he thought made him strong, not with revenge, not with money, but with silence, dignity, and the kind of grace that burns deeper than anger. That night, the walls of his arrogance began to crack, and by dawn, the man who thought he owned the world would finally understand what it meant to lose himself. What happened between them that night would silence every whisper in Charleston, forever. Stay to hear how the storm began. Cole Harrington lived in a mansion that looked more like a museum than a home. Every surface gleamed, crystal, marble, silver, but nothing inside was warm. Even the air felt rehearsed, like everything had to stay in its perfect place. At 33, Cole had mastered the art of control. His mornings began with black coffee, unread emails, and financial reports he no longer cared about. Afternoons blurred into phone calls and interviews where he smiled on cue. Nights were spent at charity galas, always beside a different woman whose name he rarely remembered by morning. The press called him Charleston's golden son. They praised his brilliance, his charm, his legacy. Yet, when the cameras stopped flashing, silence filled the glass halls. He could buy anything, except meaning. He often stared at his reflection in the window at night. Behind the city lights, he saw a man who had everything but peace. Still, pride whispered that peace was for the weak, and Cole Harrington had no intention of being weak. But life, as he would soon learn, has its own way of breaking the strongest glass. The stillness of the mansion shattered when Richard Harrington Sr. arrived. Cole's father never announced his visits. He simply appeared, like judgment itself. The older man's cane struck the marble floor with each step, echoing authority built over decades. Cole greeted him with practiced charm, holding a glass of scotch. "Father, to what do I owe the pleasure?" Richard ignored the pleasantry. His tone was sharp, stripped of affection. "Pleasure has nothing to do with this. You are getting married." Cole laughed, certain it was a joke. "You can't be serious." "I'm done watching you drown this family's name in scandal," Richard said. "The board is losing confidence. The shareholders need stability." Cole set the glass down, his voice cold. "You mean they need a performance? You always confuse love with reputation." Richard's eyes hardened. "Reputation built this empire. Without it, we are nothing." The silence that followed was heavy, filled with unspoken battles between two generations of pride. Cole leaned back, feigning ease, but his pulse betrayed him. His father never made idle threats. Something irreversible was coming. Richard walked toward the tall windows, staring at the city skyline. "You will marry Dr. Amara Brooks," he said, almost casually. Cole blinked. "Who?" "Victor Brooks' daughter." The name hit him like a slap. His father's estranged brother, the one exiled from the family after accusing Richard of corruption. Cole hadn't seen Victor since childhood. He gave a short, mocking laugh. "So that's your plan? Tie me to the daughter of the man you ruined? She's a scientist, isn't she? Hidden away in some lab?" "Brilliant," Richard replied. "And respectable. Exactly what you are not right now." Cole's voice sharpened. "You'd marry me off to wash your conscience clean?" Richard turned, calm and cruel. "Consider it an opportunity for redemption." Cole's laughter died. Beneath his father's control, he felt the humiliation burn. A Harrington, forced to marry a woman he'd never met, the daughter of a man their family destroyed. It was unthinkable. Yet Richard's gaze left no room for argument. The decision was already made. Cole's anger erupted. "You can't dictate my life like another business deal." Richard's reply was calm, final. Then resign. The company, the accounts, the penthouse, all revert to the trust. You walk away with nothing. For the first time, the threat landed. Cole's chest tightened. His father wasn't bluffing. Every luxury, every symbol of power he'd ever flaunted existed under Richard's signature. You'd destroy your own son to keep control? Richard met his eyes. To preserve the Harrington name, I would destroy much more. Cole's laughter was hollow now. You call this legacy? It's a prison made of your pride. Then accept your cell gracefully, Richard said, turning to leave. The wedding will be announced in 1 month. When the door closed, the silence felt heavier than ever. Cole stared at his reflection in the glass wall, the empire he thought he owned suddenly fragile, transparent. For the first time he saw himself, not as a man in control, but as a pawn in his father's game. And somewhere, far from Charleston's glittering skyline, a woman he had never met had just become his fate. Cole sat alone after his father's departure, the name still echoing in his head. Amara Brooks. It felt strange, foreign, unimpressive. He opened his laptop and searched. There she was, a scientist with a flawless record, countless publications, and a face hidden behind thick glasses. He smirked. A woman of logic, he muttered. How romantic. Her picture showed no smile, no warmth, only focus. He imagined long hours in sterile labs, fluorescent lights reflecting off glass beakers. A woman like that, he whispered, would make a dull wife. Still, something in her calm expression unsettled him. She looked neither desperate nor weak. The absence of vanity felt like defiance, and that irritated him. People were supposed to crave his attention. She looked like someone who wouldn't even notice he existed. Cole closed the screen, dismissing the thought. Yet the name lingered. Amara Brooks, a woman from a forgotten branch of the family tree, a scientist who would soon carry his name. He poured another drink and smiled to himself. Let's see how far dignity gets her, he said softly. But deep down he wondered, for the first time, what kind of woman agreed to such a deal. Miles away, Dr. Amara Brooks worked late in her small Charleston lab. The room smelled of coffee and chemicals, humming with old machines she'd repaired herself. Her hands moved steadily as she adjusted a microscope, her mind half on her research, half on the letter lying open beside her. The letter bore the Harrington seal. Inside, a single line stood out. Your agreement to this marriage will secure full funding for the Brooks Foundation. Amara closed her eyes, steadying her breath. The grant rejections, the layoffs, the months of uncertainty, all pressed in at once. Pride wanted her to burn the letter, but the faces of her young researchers came to mind, people who depended on her. She folded the letter neatly and set it aside. Her reflection in the lab window looked tired but unbroken. If this is the cost, she whispered, then so be it. To her, it wasn't surrender. It was strategy. She would not marry for love or name, but for the chance to keep her life's work alive. And in that quiet lab, Amara Brooks decided her fate, unaware that her calm would soon shake a billionaire to his core. A week later, Cole sat at a private table in Charleston's most exclusive restaurant. He arrived early, not out of respect, but calculation. If he controlled the setting, he could control her. When Amara entered, she was exactly as he imagined. Simple suit, hair pulled back, no trace of glamour. Yet her stride was steady, her posture unafraid. She greeted him with a calm nod. "Dr. Brooks," he said smoothly, gesturing to the seat across from him. "I see you came prepared for a business meeting, not a proposal." She met his smirk with a level gaze. "From what I understand, this is business." Cole leaned back, testing her. "You know what people are saying? That this marriage is charity on my part." Her lips curved slightly. "Then perhaps they should thank you for your generosity." The waiter arrived, tension filling the silence. Cole expected discomfort, maybe embarrassment, but Amara's composure never cracked. For the first time in years, his charm failed to land. Beneath her quiet tone, he sensed steel, and though he'd never admit it, that unsettled him more than he wanted to understand. Dinner ended, but the negotiation continued. Cole poured wine, ready to dominate the conversation. "Let's speak plainly," he said. "You want my name. I want my inheritance. We can make this easy." Amara set down her glass. "Not quite. I want funding for my laboratory. Your father promised it as part of the contract. You, Mr. Harrington, can keep your name and your freedom. I will require neither." He blinked, momentarily thrown off. "You're serious?" "Completely," she replied. "You'll attend events. Smile for the cameras. I'll continue my work. We keep appearances, nothing more." Cole laughed softly. "Cold and practical. You might be more like me than I thought." Her voice remained calm. "No, I simply know the difference between necessity and desire." That sentence lingered in the air, sharper than any insult. For once, Cole had no witty reply. He realized she had walked into this arrangement not as a victim, but as an equal playing a different game. And somehow, that made her more dangerous than any woman he had ever met. The wedding came with the precision of a corporate event. 47 guests, each handpicked by Richard Harrington. The ceremony took place at the family estate's private chapel, decorated in white lilies and silence. Amara wore a simple gown. No diamonds, no lace, only quiet grace. Cole stood beside her, face unreadable, performing vows like lines in a script. When the officiant declared them husband and wife, their kiss lasted less than a breath. Barely contact, more contract. The photographers clicked. The guests clapped politely. Cole's father watched with satisfaction, as if another merger had been completed. Amara, however, stood tall. Her eyes did not seek approval. Later, during the reception, Cole raised his glass and smiled for the cameras. The champagne tasted bitter. Across the room, Amara spoke softly to Victor Brooks, her father, whose tired eyes carried both pride and worry. By evening's end, the mansion returned to silence. Two strangers shared a name, a house, and an agreement neither of them believed in. And somewhere inside Cole's chest an unease began to stir, something he refused to name. After the ceremony, the newlyweds slipped into a long black limousine. The applause faded behind them, replaced by the quiet hum of the engine. Cole sat with one arm resting on the seat, his eyes on the window, but his thoughts on the woman beside him. Amara looked straight ahead, hands folded neatly in her lap. No nervousness, no curiosity, only calm. She didn't glance at him once. Cole broke the silence. "So, Mrs. Harrington, do you always attend your own wedding as if it were a staff meeting?" Her tone was measured. "I don't believe the volume of emotion defines the sincerity of commitment." He studied her profile, the faint reflection in the window. No trace of fear, no sign of ambition, just composure. It irritated him more than hostility ever could. Outside, Charleston's lights streaked past like fragments of another world. Inside, the air grew heavy with questions he wouldn't ask. For the first time, Cole realized he couldn't read her, and that, more than anything, unsettled him. When the car stopped before the hotel, he caught her calm expression in the reflection again and wondered what secrets it hid. The suite was quiet except for the soft hiss of rain against the windows. Cole poured himself a drink, rehearsing indifference. This night was a formality, nothing more. When Amara stepped out from the adjoining room, the air shifted. She wore no jewelry, no pretense, only simplicity that somehow felt disarming. Her hair, once tied back, now framed her face. Her eyes met his without hesitation. Cole's casual words caught in his throat. The sharp remark he'd prepared dissolved before he could speak. Amara crossed the room with calm grace. "We should get through this," she said softly, not cold, not warm, simply real. He nodded, unsure of what to do with the sudden pull in his chest. He had been with countless women, each rehearsed, each predictable. But nothing about this woman felt predictable. When her hand brushed his sleeve, his certainty faltered. For a moment, control, the thing he prided himself on, slipped quietly away. And, for the first time in his life, Cole Harrington forgot how to be detached. The hours blurred into something he couldn't name. The woman he'd called dull became a storm, gentle and consuming at once. Every word, every breath, seemed to dismantle the man he thought he was. He had planned to keep distance, but she didn't let him. Without effort or manipulation, she pulled him closer, forcing him to feel. Her calm became fire, her silence a language he couldn't resist. He had spent years proving power. Yet here, in this dimly lit room, he learned that real power needed no noise. It lived in the steady rhythm of her touch, in the quiet certainty that she belonged to herself. By the time dawn bled through the curtains, Cole no longer knew which version of himself remained, the arrogant heir or the man quietly undone. For a fleeting moment he believed she might have felt it too. But as sleep claimed him, he saw the calm return to her face, like a tide retreating, leaving him stranded between awe and confusion. Cole woke to soft light and an empty side of the bed. The faint scent of her perfume lingered, nothing else. Amara stood near the window, dressed, her hair tied back again, eyes on her tablet. The transformation was so complete it almost hurt to look at her. "Good morning," he said. "Good morning," she replied, not turning. "Breakfast is on the table. I have an early meeting." He sat up, trying to find words that didn't sound foolish. "About last night," she interrupted gently. "There's no need to discuss it. We fulfilled the requirements of the contract." Something inside him twisted. "Is that what it was to you? A requirement?" She looked at him then, expression unreadable. "I'm pragmatic, Mr. Harrington. Nothing more." The distance in her voice hit harder than anger. When the door closed behind her, the silence felt colder than the night before. Cole stared at the empty space she'd left, realizing that for the first time he wanted a reason he couldn't name. Days turned into weeks. The pattern repeated. Amara left early, returned late. Polite, efficient, untouchable. But each night, when she finally crossed the threshold of their room, everything changed. In darkness, she became the woman who had undone him. Fire beneath restraint, certainty beneath silence. And every morning, she vanished into the calm, precise version of herself, leaving him guessing which was real. Cole told himself it didn't matter, yet her contradictions followed him everywhere, in boardrooms, in dreams, in the reflection of every glass wall he passed. He began to notice small things, the way she tucked a stray curl behind her ear, the quiet hum when she read. Each detail deepened his confusion. It wasn't desire anymore, it was need, a desperate urge to understand the woman who refused to be understood. And somewhere in that struggle, Cole Harrington, the man who prided himself on control, realized he was the one being studied now. By day, she ignored him. By night, she owned him. Weeks passed, and the Harrington penthouse settled into a quiet rhythm. They lived like two strangers sharing a border neither dared to cross. Amara spent her days at the laboratory, returning late, her notes tucked under one arm. Cole worked long hours at the firm, yet found himself waiting for the sound of the door every evening. She spoke little, but when she did, her words carried clarity that cut through his arrogance. During dinners, he listened without meaning to, realizing how much she knew, not just about science, but about people, discipline, and purpose. Her life was ruled by structure, while his was built on impulse. He began to see her world differently, clean, precise, and unshakable. It made him respect her, and that respect unsettled him. At night, the silence between them felt heavier than argument. Cole had never shared space with someone who needed nothing from him. He found himself craving her attention, the smallest glance, the faintest smile. But Amara remained steady, wrapped in her quiet focus. The more he tried to understand her, the more she became a mirror, showing him everything he lacked. One morning, Cole's assistant handed him an invitation, an annual charity gala for medical research. The Harrington Foundation had sponsored it for years. Richard expected both husband and wife to attend. Cole looked at the embossed letters and frowned. "She won't want to go." "She's already confirmed," the assistant replied. That night, over dinner, he asked, "Do you even own a gown for something like this?" Amara didn't look up from her tablet. I borrowed one from a friend. It's a professional event, not a parade. Cole smirked, hiding his discomfort. You'll be in front of cameras. You might want to… Try. Her eyes lifted, calm and direct. Try to impress people who measure worth by appearance? I think I'll be fine. He wanted to argue but stopped. She was right. Still, unease gnawed at him. The press had never been kind to the women in his life. The thought of them mocking her, his wife, felt strangely personal. By the time the gala approached, Cole realized he wasn't worried about reputation anymore. He was worried about her. The night of the gala arrived. Cole adjusted his cufflinks, rehearsing polite apologies for whatever awkwardness might unfold. When Amara appeared at the top of the staircase, his words disappeared. Her hair, usually tied back, fell in soft curls around her shoulders. Her dress was understated but elegant, the color deep and warm against her skin. She carried herself with calm confidence, not seeking attention but commanding it all the same. At the event, he stayed close, ready to rescue her from judgment. But she didn't need rescuing. When the director of a major hospital approached to discuss funding, Amara stepped forward with poise. Within minutes, she had a small crowd listening to her speak about her research, her voice. Steady and bright, Cole watched as admiration replaced curiosity in every gaze around her. Even the investors leaned in, captivated. For the first time, he saw her not as an obligation, but as something extraordinary. And the realization hit him with both pride and fear, because now everyone else could see it too. As the night went on, Cole's pride began to twist into something darker. Across the room, Amara laughed softly with a group of scientists and donors. One of them, a young researcher, touched her arm as he spoke. Cole's jaw tightened. He reminded himself that this was absurd. They were at a public event, but reason did nothing to quiet the pulse of irritation in his chest. Sebastian Hayes, an investor, appeared beside him. "Your wife is remarkable," he said. "Sharp mind, graceful presence. She'd be perfect for our new division." Cole forced a smile. "She already has a position." Sebastian chuckled. "Every researcher has a price." Cole excused himself before his temper broke. He found Amara near the terrace doors, still glowing with quiet confidence. When she turned, surprise flickered in her eyes, then something like disappointment. "Everything all right?" she asked. "Perfect," he replied, though his voice sounded strained. But inside, the truth burned. For the first time, Cole wasn't afraid of losing his fortune. He was afraid of losing her. They stepped onto the terrace, the city lights trembling below. The air between them was sharp. Cole broke the silence. "Enjoying the attention?" Amara's brow lifted. "You mean the conversations about my work?" "Yes, they went well." "That's not what I meant," he said, taking a step closer. "You've changed everything overnight. The hair, the dress, the smiles. Who are you trying to impress?" Her expression stayed calm, but her eyes hardened. "Is it really attention that bothers you, or the fact that it's not on you anymore?" He hesitated. "That's not…" She cut him off. "You asked if I could stand beside you. The truth is, you're afraid I might stand above you." Her words landed like glass breaking. Cole wanted to deny it, but couldn't. For a moment, neither spoke. The distance between them felt both unbearable and necessary. Amara turned to leave. "I didn't come here to compete, Cole. I came to be seen." And, for the first time, he understood. She wasn't asking for space in his world. She was reclaiming her own. Hours after the gala, the penthouse was silent. The argument still hung in the air, fragile and unresolved. Cole stood near the window, staring at the city below, replaying her words. "You're afraid I might stand above you." When Amara entered, she didn't speak. Her hair fell loose, the glow from the city lights touching her skin. She looked at him not with anger, but with something gentler. Sadness, maybe understanding. "I don't want to fight," she said quietly. He turned. "Then what do you want?" She took a step closer. "To stop hiding." For the first time, she didn't wait for darkness. She reached for him under the steady light, unafraid to be seen. The barriers that had divided them for weeks began to fall, slowly, deliberately. Their hands met, hesitant, then sure. This wasn't about power or duty. It was about two people stripped of everything but truth. When he whispered her name, she didn't flinch. For once, she let herself feel. And in that rare, fragile hour, love became something simple, without rules, without masks, without fear. For the first time, dawn found them still together. The sunlight crept through the curtains, warm and unhurried. Cole woke to the quiet rhythm of Amara's breathing beside him. She hadn't moved away. Her head rested on his shoulder, her hand still loosely over his chest. The world outside felt distant, muted, almost kind. He lay still, afraid to disturb the fragile calm. There were no contracts now, no family expectations, just presence. He realized how little he'd ever known about peace until this moment. When Amara finally stirred, she looked at him and smiled. Small, uncertain, but real. "Good morning," she whispered. "Stay," he said before he could stop himself. "I will," she answered softly. For the first time, he believed her. They spent the morning in quiet ease, sharing breakfast, trading glances that felt like new beginnings. Cole didn't know what the future held, but he sensed something shifting inside him, something he didn't want to lose. He thought the worst was behind them. He had no idea the storm was already on its way. Later that afternoon, Amara sat by the window, her phone buzzing with an unfamiliar number. She almost ignored it, but the message preview froze her in place. Attached were financial documents, detailed, dated, official. They traced the research funds promised to her foundation, only they never arrived. Instead, the transfers led to hidden accounts tied to Harrington Holdings. At the bottom, the signature, Richard Harrington Sr. Her pulse quickened. "No," she whispered. It had to be a mistake. She scrolled again, her breath shallow. 8 months of redirected funding. Millions missing. The betrayal unfolded in cold numbers and lines of ink. Cole found her minutes later, pale and shaking. "Amara, what's wrong?" She turned the screen toward him. "You tell me." He took the phone, scanning the files, confusion giving way to dread. "I didn't know about this." Her voice cracked, more disbelief than anger. "It's your company, Cole." He reached for her hand, but she pulled back. The look in her eyes wasn't rage, it was heartbreak. The peace of that morning shattered like glass. "Did you know?" Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled. "No," Cole said again. "I swear I didn't." "You expect me to believe that?" Amara's tone sharpened. "Your father promised me that funding. That was the only reason I agreed to this arrangement." He stepped forward. "And I'll fix it. I'll make it right." She shook her head. "This isn't about money. It's about trust, and that's already gone." The silence between them stretched. Cole searched for the right words, but everything sounded like a defense. "I never meant for you to get hurt," he said finally. She gave a sad, broken smile. "Intentions don't erase consequences." She turned away, gathering her things. No tears, no raised voice, just quiet resolve. "Amara, please," he said, desperate now. "Don't walk away." She paused at the door. "I have to, before I lose myself trying to believe you." And then she was gone. The sound of the door closing was soft, but it cut deeper than any argument could. The penthouse felt emptier than it ever had. Her absence filled every room. Cole sat in the living room surrounded by silence, the documents still open on the table. He read them again and again until the truth settled in. His father's betrayal had destroyed the only thing that ever felt real, and in his silence, he had been complicit. He picked up the phone, calling his lawyer. His voice was raw but steady. "I want every transaction traced. I want my father's involvement exposed, and prepare the paperwork to remove him from the board." The lawyer hesitated. "That could ruin the company." "So be it," Cole said. He already ruined everything else. When the call ended, he sank back into the chair, exhausted but resolute. For once, the fear of losing power didn't matter. He looked toward the window where Amara had once stood. Her absence was the consequence of his blindness, and, for the first time, Cole Harrington decided to fight, not for legacy, but for redemption. 2 days later, the boardroom of Harrington Holdings fell silent. Every director watched as Cole placed a folder on the polished table. Inside were documents, evidence of Richard Harrington's financial manipulation. His father sat at the head of the table, composed, unreadable. "This is family business," Richard said. "Handle it privately." Cole's voice was calm, but it carried weight. "It stopped being private the moment you used my wife's trust to feed your empire." The board murmured. One by one, faces turned toward Richard. "I've called for a vote," Cole continued. "Effective immediately, I resign as CEO, and the assets under my control, every share, every property, will transfer to Dr. Amara Brooks and the Brooks Foundation." Richard rose in disbelief. "You would throw away everything?" Cole met his gaze. "I already did, when I chose your pride over her integrity." For the first time, the man who had built an empire had nothing to say. The vote was unanimous. Richard was removed. Cole walked out without looking back. For the first time in his life, he felt lighter. The cost of power had finally been paid. The road to the lake stretched quiet and empty. The old cabin waited at the edge of the water, where pine trees whispered in the wind. Cole parked and stood still, unsure if he had the right to knock. Amara sat at the dock, her feet barely touching the rippling surface. She didn't turn when he approached, but he knew she felt him there. "I fired him," Cole said softly. "The board removed my father. The investigation's open." She nodded, eyes still on the water. "You didn't have to do that." "I did," he replied. "It was the only truth I could give you." The sun began to set, gold bleeding into the lake. Neither spoke for a long time. When she finally looked at him, her eyes shone. Not in anger, but in exhaustion and something almost tender. "You shouldn't have come." "I couldn't stay away," he said. The silence that followed was fragile but alive. Beneath the ache, a small spark of hope stirred. Quiet, hesitant, but real. They sat side by side on the old wooden dock. The sound of the water filled the spaces between their words. Amara broke the silence first. "I should tell you the truth," she said. "I didn't agree to this marriage for funding. That was just what I told myself to make it easier." Cole turned to her, unsure. "I'd been watching you for months before your father's proposal," she continued, voice trembling. "At conferences, charity events. I wanted to meet you, but I was afraid. Afraid that if you saw me, you'd only see what everyone else did. Plain, unworthy." He closed his eyes. "I was blind until you left," he whispered. "I thought power made me whole, but you showed me what it meant to feel alive." Tears welled in her eyes. "You really didn't know about the money?" "No," he said, "but I knew what losing you felt like, and I never want to feel it again." Amara's hand found his. The pain between them didn't disappear. It simply began to heal. And, for the first time, love felt like forgiveness. 6 months later, the same chapel stood bathed in morning light. The guests were fewer, the music softer, the moment real. Amara walked down the aisle, her dress simple but luminous. Her glasses framed eyes that no longer hid. Cole stood waiting, no longer the arrogant heir, but a man remade by loss and choice. When they met at the altar, he smiled through quiet tears. "No contracts this time," he said. "Only promises," she replied. Their vows were short, honest, imperfect. They spoke not of forever, but of effort, of choosing each other again and again. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, their kiss lingered, tender and true. Applause rose softly around them. Outside, sunlight poured through the trees. Cole looked at Amara, her laughter bright, her hand steady in his. He realized that what he'd once called weakness was the greatest strength of all, the courage to love without control. That evening, they danced beneath an open sky. The stars shimmered over the lake, the same place where forgiveness had begun. Cole held her close. "He entered a marriage for money," he said softly, echoing his father's words, "and found a woman worth more than all his fortune." Amara smiled against his shoulder. You always did have a flair for drama. He laughed quietly. Only with you. The music faded, but neither stopped moving. Around them, the night felt infinite, their breaths steady, their hearts unguarded. Cole thought of the man he used to be, the one who believed love was weakness. He understood now that love was the only thing strong enough to change him. As they swayed beneath the stars, their story found its end. Not in perfection, but in truth. If you believe love can change even the coldest heart, share this story. Someone out there still needs to believe it can.